Hello, everybody. Better light situation today, so I won't be as sort of blown out on the video. But just a moment. There we go. Apologies, forgot that. The book that we have been looking at, the plague, is primarily a story at this point, right, as you've been reading through it, of a town that has been affected by a plague epidemic and that must determine how it's going to deal with it, right? And what we see in the book are the combined sort of problems of people needing to decide how they're going to deal with the situation, the disease itself doing what diseases and pandemics do, which is being very resistant to any sort of a solution, seeing how city officials are dealing with this, right, in order to keep it from going further than the gates, people being in lockdown, and life still somehow kind of going on. The things that we see in the plague that may be familiar to us, right, are the idea of lockdowns, right? Here in the U.S., we didn't experience nearly as much of that during the pandemic, right? Lockdowns were sort of a voluntary thing. I mean, there were places you couldn't go, restaurants you couldn't go into. People had to order, in many cases, food and either pick it up or have it delivered. We found a way to move forward, but we were not stuck in a city without any possibility of being able to leave. They do talk about some things that perhaps felt very familiar. The fact that, silverware at times is individually wrapped. The fact that alcohol sales rise, right? And people, begin drinking a little bit more than they used to. And what we also see is having to look at characters deciding what kind of responsibility they're going to take for improving the situation, if you will. And it's a complicated and very difficult situation during which we see many characters struggling to figure out if they want to help, if they want to save themselves, basically presenting themselves and sometimes others, right, with the same sorts of questions that Sartre himself says he was confronted with when he met with a student trying to decide whether to stay with his mother, who had already lost children, and who would be devastated if he went to war, or if he should go to war and help his country, because otherwise, right, who else is going to do it, right? He's able-bodied, he's young, he should join those forces and try to help out. But the questions in his mind are if he stays with his mother. The war may get worse, bad things may happen anyway, his mother might die anyway, she's older, right? He may become sick, the war might come to them. But if he goes to war, then it's quite possible he will never see action. He will never feel like he actually gets to help out. He may get stuck in a bureaucratic mess. He may get stuck in an office. There's no guarantee that he will be helpful. And so the question he poses to Sartre is, what's the best decision given that there are unknowns? And Sartre reminds him that the only way to really do anything is to do something. You must act. Act in any way that you feel that you must act. Prepare to be judged for it. We cannot predict everything. And in a way, this is a reminder of Kierkegaard's whole idea of the leap of faith. We make that leap of faith, according to Kierkegaard, towards faith, towards God, in order to simply say that we know that we don't know what the future is going to hold. No one can predict it, but our faith in God is such that we will leap to follow that and to assume, right, to believe that things will be all right. Sartre says, right, we have no such guarantee that everything will be all right, but we must act anyway. In a way, we must leap anyway. And so this brings us to Rambert. I'm going to try to do this in about a 10-minute video, right? We're 5 minutes in, I know, because I've been blathering on. But when we talk about Rambert, right, this journalist who is stuck in Oran and who must decide what to do, right? He has relationships outside of Oran. He doesn't think he belongs there. He thinks it's unfair that they keep him there because he's not from there. He's not been around anybody. He's not a carrier, right? He should be allowed to leave. And Rieux says, right, he understands how upsetting it is for Rambert to be in this situation. He understands how unfair it is, but because there is no way to tell if he is caught the disease. There's no way to tell if he will catch it in between getting tested and going to the gates. There is no way to let him out, right? That everybody is stuck here. Everybody is in the same situation, and there is nothing that can be done. That any deliveries that come to the city, are dropped off and then people go out and pick them up. There is no contact, right? And Rambert plans to leave. We see a chapter or two in which he basically is figuring out a way to escape. How does he plan to do this? Well, he goes through Cottard. And we know that Cottard, another character that we're going to talk about in a little bit, has already attempted to commit suicide at the beginning of the book, decides he's not going to do it, and then suddenly, during the plague, becomes very happy, seems very pleased, is always concerned that maybe the plague is coming to an end, and we understand that something funny must be going on with him if this is his reaction, right? Rambert just wants to get out. He just wants to leave. And one of the things that I think we have to determine as sort of people looking at this from an existentialist perspective is, what is his trajectory? What are his reasons for wanting to leave? Selfish reasons for anything don't necessarily automatically disqualify you from being seen in a positive light by somebody like a Sartre, right? Sartre says we all make the best decisions for ourselves that we could possibly make, right? Whenever we can, right? That we would never make an intentionally poor choice if we have a better option available for us. And sometimes those options are right, one, in our best interests, of course, right, and designed to enhance our lives. And where we come into conflict is when we realize that the decision that we are going to try to make, right, if we say that everybody should be able to do this, right, if Rambert is acting with that in mind, that everybody should just be able to leave, then clearly this is not a great decision on his part. If he decides to leave and he says everybody should have the opportunity to leave, I'm making the decision that I think everybody should make, then basically you're saying there is no reason for quarantine. We're not concerned about the plague. Everybody who wants to leave, who is in a similar situation, who doesn't think they have it, should be able to leave. Clearly there will be people who leave who will take that plague elsewhere. And we know right away, right, that his decision to want to leave is one that Sartre would probably not agree with. So why does he decide to stay in the long run? I think that when we look at the situation, when we look at what Rambert is seeing, how he has come very close to leaving on a couple different occasions, but as well how he eventually shows back up at the clinic and says, look, I want to stay, I want to help, even though I'm trying to get out, eventually that leads him to see that there are things bigger than himself. Eventually it leads him to see that there are decisions that can be made that he must make on his own. I think what we see in Rambert is a person who is growing, almost a combination of Sartre and Kierkegaard. He progresses through the stages, the aesthetic stage to the ethical stage, not quite to the religious stage, right? I don't think Rambert ever really embraces religion, but we do see him passing from, I want things for me, I want things because they make me happy, we see him progressing into, I want to help others. My presence is best here. I know what I can do. I know how I can help. I know I can be of service. And his decision is fully his. And we know this because Rhea even says, right, that he was happy to know that Rambert was finally getting out, right? And truly felt that way, and truly did not feel as if he had any say in what Rambert did. And Rambert decides to leave because he is decides not to leave, because he comes to that decision on his own. I think as we continue moving through, we're going to talk about a couple of other people and their trajectories, and we will sort of examine how their points of view shift or do not, and see how we might evaluate them as well. So, in the next video, we're going to take a look at Father Panelou and sort of his trajectory and what it is as well.